Although he felt that he was inextricably linked to that old tradition, he considered himself to be one of the seers of a new cycle. When I asked him once what was the essential character of the seers of the new cycle, he said that they are warriors of total freedom, that they are such masters of awareness, stalking, and intent, that they are not caught by death, like the rest of mortal man, but choose the moment and the way of their departure from this world. At that moment, they are consumed by a fire from within and vanish from the face of the earth, free, as if they had never existed. So this is what the Golden Phoenix is all about. It's worth repeating what Joel Schaffer has said about his path, and because it mirrors the situation of so many, and it undoubtedly mirrors my own. That he is, even though he used to be concerned, that he isn't concerned. He doesn't make it a big issue whether or not his story, and the way it also corroborates what the text says, because it very clearly says that they are not caught by death like the rest of mortal man, but choose the moment and the way of their departure. So Joe has emphasized that he wants to remain sort of open or silent enough to receive the jolt, and to be, my understanding of it is to be without agenda, to come to this moment without an agenda, and to let it guide him. And there's a lot of wisdom in this statement. And it also is mirrored in many other places in the books. When Juan Matus, for example, talks about making death a much greater part of their conscious life, and yet not become morbid about death. Essentially, he's inviting us to be at peace with death in a way, and not a morbid way, to welcome it with open arms, so that when it comes, not that death is sought. This isn't a suicidal thing. This is a postural thing. That death may come without imposing herself, that she may come to us non-violently. And so When Goldragon read the works of Castaneda, of course, having the extreme mind that he was given, he went really fast and far with it, and right away started practicing whatever he could incorporate in his life without turning it upside down like a madman. Of course, that's also in the cards. There's a possibility, but it didn't play out like that. For several reasons. There's more than just we are alone and all one. So that in this realm, there's no such thing as just dropping everything and saying, oh, now I'm free. That's why they said karma. So in this realm, we are bound by the gods and the dragon, who in the Vedas is said to have been the child of a demon and a saint, or what they call it, rishi, which is also the same term used to talk about the different energies of the plane of the ecliptic of the sun, of the solar cycle. As you may or may not know, Agni is the first word of 8 of the 10 books of the Rig Veda. It's also at the beginning of John, in the beginning, in a way, depending on who translated, but Logos is the sun and light is the sun. He is the first one to be produced, so he represents the assemblage point. But in this realm, the sun has adopted a posture of entanglement. There may be other realms like it, but it's quite irrelevant right now, because we find ourselves in this realm. And there is a gravity effect, like a pull, so that even people who develop the ability to go out into other worlds. I wonder how the video is going to turn out. Those who can have developed or remembered their ability, their innate ability to go to other worlds, they have what some people have called it the astral cord or the silver line, and it pulls us back. It somehow is associated with the moon also, because the moon is a reflection of the true self, of Atman, of the essence of being, which is represented by the sun, which the Toltecs talk about in terms of the assemblage point, which is the most luminous point of the cocoon of man, of their light cocoon. So as you can see, the terminology for astrology and the Toltec seers completely and perfectly overlap. And so because of that, the Rig Veda is astrology after all. It is astrotheology. So because of that, the Toltec knowledge is astrological or astrologically reflected, fractally reflected in astrology. So the golden phoenix, if only because his founder is interested in astrology, he has a strong right side mind, then it also makes it a subject, but it isn't really an end at all. And this is why this first video was about the subject of total freedom. You see, freedom from astrology, freedom from, once the seer has seen that there's only entanglement and freedom, that in this, so that essentially every act, or every moment rather, if we even recognize an actor, there is an actor, but not necessarily where we think he is. Every moment is either vacillating, so barely moving from the current position, which is very common. It's a fixation of the assemblage point, or going towards freedom, the left side, or doing entanglement, the right side. Entanglement is measurement, planning, time, Saturn, Jupiter. Jupiter is just a bit to the right of the sun, right? And then there's Saturn, way to the right, and way to the left is Neptune. And Ketu. This is Ketu, the tiger's eyes. The eyes, those hypnotic eyes that Lee has, that Denzel Washington and Al Pacino have. They have Ketu on the midheaven, like Lee. Lee's Ketu is parallel with his Saturn, who's perfectly on the midheaven. So Lee was given a very strong right side avatar. And yet it was the right side that, this is why the subject of the motionlessness and plainness and toroidalness nature of this realm, essentially the fact that it can be scientifically demonstrated with measurements, with tools, with engineering, with trigonometry and line of sight, and logic, pure logic and experimentation, pure observation, pure science, not quoting old books, just looking scientifically at the realm. We can easily demonstrate that it is essentially a torus field, which makes sense since all forms here can be perceived from the seer's point of view as a torus field, and also scientifically, electromagnetically measured as a torus field. What happened was, the reason why they call these the last days or the end days is because the right side is now proving the left side, or said otherwise, that the entanglement is leading us to total freedom. That the nature of this world, when observed correctly, especially when this is experienced by someone who was born and grew up in a construct where all of this is hidden behind a veil a greater veil, a greater illusion than the world itself, as if the fractal keeps going, essentially, as it does. That they're spinning and there's a vacuum around them and the ground is accelerating way faster than a free-falling object in several directions at once, and yet the stars never change, even though they're said to be, all of them, going in different directions, also in different speeds. Once that is broken out of, first of all, the ridiculousness of it is so flabbergasting that it really humbles the intellect, the mind, to realize that it could have fooled itself so thoroughly on things that it could have observed so easily, so simply. Maybe not easily, but simply. And indeed, it was Lee's experience when making this realization that when he was programmed in the detention centers for childhood to believe that the ground was accelerating faster than a free-falling object in several directions. And yet, we couldn't feel it. And that the earth is curved, and yet we cannot see or feel or detect this, because Einstein said something that no one understands, which they say was proven when they put atomic clocks on airplanes and flew above Earth in a circle and landed back and said there's 4 millionth, whatever, I don't even know what the number is, it's ridiculously small difference between the clocks that stayed and the clocks that were on the plane. Never mind trusting their word for it, like how many witnesses were there, who has repeated this experiment, and what does the experiment even mean? Why does the experiment, taking clocks above Earth in a circle and landing and detecting a difference, what does that say about, how does that prove the idea that the ground is falling, moving faster than a falling object in several directions at once, but we can't feel it? Or that we can't see any bend in the shape of the earth or curvature, and yet it's there. It doesn't. Just like shooting monkeys in the eye socket full of poison doesn't prove that sick monkeys make other monkeys sick. And that is how they think they've proven the germ theory. That the bacteria which are present in a diseased body, flesh body, are the cause of the disease, when in fact it's been very well observed that the bacteria are almost always clearing out the poison which causes disease. Virus means poisonous substance. A virus is a poison. They even say it. They don't even really hide it. Because when they do their virus isolation, they just throw poison in a vial with some milk. And then they take an electron micrograph, and they say, here, virus. Yeah, of course. That's what you put in there. Poison. Their experiment is so stupid that it doesn't even occur to people to think that it's that stupid. That they took a clock on the plane and that therefore the ground is moving in several directions, accelerating accelerating. Sorry. The ground is accelerating in several directions way faster than the free-falling object. But we can't feel it because the airplane flew above Earth. And there's a difference in the clocks, which no one has. Giant clocks, atomic clocks. Oh, that sounds great. Just throw the word atomic in there and now everybody's flabbergasted. So Lee has found the quest which he came here to remember. And that is, he came here to entangle himself, to entangle his luminous filaments with the filaments of others. This includes also the filaments of Gaia and Uranus, Uranus, heaven and earth, the sort of first fractal down from Atman, which represent the soul, which is now that all of this is here, not that there is necessarily time involved in this, now is symbolized and personified or represented by the being which we call the sun. And so the first fractal was heaven and earth, to separate the waters above from the waters below, and to create the ground on which all of the 2- and 4-legged creatures of earth shall dwell. So these are also beings, because beings are just fractals of the monad, and so all beings crave in their essence to join back with the monad, with the all that is and all that is not. So we've come to a time when total freedom is explained to the tribes of this realm through the right side. And this, of course, has happened before and has kept happening at a smaller, much smaller scale. In fact, in a way of speaking, the right side is always going to have to find the left. In a way, there's going to have to be an experience that takes all the doubt away from the right side, which will allow the energy to be kept, which will allow the alignment of intention with the ego's command, which is a way of remembering the true nature of Atman, which is peace. And in peace, total freedom. And so total freedom isn't just something out there after death. It's not something that one works for here in order to save up enough. It's an alignment that occurs in any part of the cycle. It doesn't have, there's no rules. So the underworld can have total freedom and heaven can have entanglement. Yeah, but it's just taking the bandwidth. Okay. That's what the Golden Phoenix is about. It has been taken apart from Goldragon in perhaps only a name for now, until somebody steps up to carry that responsibility with him. So this is a beckoning to those who feel called by this call. So there's some rules in order to be a part of the Golden Phoenix. Simply because for reasons of preservation of energy. So the first rule for now is that each member must willingly and cheerfully drink his water, because there's absolutely no reason not to. So that's rule number 1. And I guess that leads us to rule number 2, which was on the back burner, but is cooked up enough now to come out. And essentially, these rules are about preservation of energy. And so because this is sort of, we're beyond that topic in the Golden Phoenix, up is up and down is down. And so rule number 2 is that each member must be able to distinguish up from down, which automatically includes understanding that the ground is not accelerating. And that our instruments measure a flat plane. And that no one can make anybody sick with his germs or his poison in a physical sense. I'm not saying that poisoned people don't become toxic because their mind is confused by the poison and therefore spread toxicity. Yes, that's true. But the poison, the physical flesh poison in their body, is not reproducing and then like launching itself through the water or the air into other people. The poison comes out of their excrements and their sweat and their vaginal secretion and their saliva and their blood in a certain quantity, so that if somebody is highly poisonous, his blood or her vaginal secretion or his sperm might trigger a reaction. So yeah, all this stuff, first of all, the rule is each member must be able to distinguish up from down. So it doesn't say that each member must, before becoming a member, like declare solemnly that he understands that the earth is a motionless plane. It just means that the Golden Phoenix core members or council will determine how honest each member is in applying his effort, his best effort, to distinguishing up from down, but will help them for a time. But there will be a time, of course, and then this will be the same with rule number 1, where we're accepting of people who just want to go ahead first and have never drank their water since they came out of the womb, but want to do it. They know they want to do it. There's such a man already in the Golden Phoenix, and perhaps more than one even, and it's great. And Lee has had that intensity when he began, so that essentially he would have qualified. So that's the intent here. The intention is to allow those who have already the intensity to just come in and so as sort of trainees, or they'll be on trial to see if they can keep that intensity, and of course we'll help them, we'll support them, but only up to a point where if they keep, especially if they're arrogant, which is another way of saying that they have self-importance. Self-importance is the obstacle, number 1. That's what the Toltecs called it. It's where we take ourselves seriously as these beings who have to fear death and believe everything so that they aren't made fun of by the collective, and that they have to be listened to or understood, or that they deserve something, or that they don't deserve something. That all of that is self-importance. Because total freedom doesn't care about any of that. So we at the Golden Phoenix will essentially work with self-importance on the right side, which is why these topics of plain Earth are brought up, and the contagion, and the nuclear bombs. Also, nuclear bombs. There's never been a nuclear bomb observed or demonstrated convincingly anywhere. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were clearly firebombed, and the surveyors of the U.S. Army that were sent to assay this said so. And it's clear from the pictures anyway. We can make our own mind with the pictures. And most of the church walls were still standing, like a few hundred feet from the supposed center blast. The wall facing the supposed blast was standing. Whoops. So that's the right side work, and these are tools which have already been discovered, techniques. These are techniques. Understanding that Earth is a motion and plane is a technique for grasping the primordial importance of total freedom. By understanding, by seeing with the logical mind the clues which clearly demonstrate the magical or divine nature of reality. So these techniques are applied, and essentially, in the whole, those who don't show result after a while will be let go, because there's a preservation of energy principle. This isn't Juan Matus's time anymore. Juan Matus would take 25 years to find a disciple. This isn't his time. Now we have AI bots that can filter spam, and we have voting councils and DAOs that can vote on downgrading members or expulsing them or sending them to inviting them essentially to go to other organizations, other retreat centers. Or for example, I have a friend in somewhere south of Mexico City. When I say Mexico, I mean Mexico City, in one of the Mexican states, Wadley Station, and they do have a retreat when they use psychedelics. And of course, the Golden Phoenix will also have power plants in its array of technologies, but it really isn't emphasized. For example, Lee has used power plants for this presentation, but he's taking them away. So coffee was just exorcised from his life. He just had a tiny little enema before this show, and another tiny little enema yesterday because the headache was coming on. But it's most of the withdrawals have been fought through. He just took some because he was doing this talk, and then yesterday he took some because he was going out to see some people. But after this social time, he's just going to power through the withdrawal symptoms of coffee, which are pretty hardcore, which like are up there with morphine, by the way. So any of you coffee addicts, I can help. I know how to deal with coffee now. And then we're going to have more members who have different experiences. So I have a lot of experience with dealing with extremely assertive, quote unquote, aggressive, violent personalities such as myself. Very right side, frustrated. A lot of men, of course, are like that, because they tend to be more male and therefore expanding into the right side. If this doesn't all make sense, it's fine. Because in reality, none of what I said makes sense. All of this is right side knowledge, which has no value on the left side. None. Just like the left side has no value on the right side. It doesn't help somebody to know how to cut a beam of wood at 82 3/4 inches exactly if he knows how to shift to the left side and perceive the unimaginable. That doesn't help him cut the beam exactly. That's a right side thing. So it's important that also that we distinguish that what I'm talking about when I say total freedom cannot be talked about, only perceived. So there's only one way to know if this is real, and that is to walk the path of the seeker of total freedom, which is enunciated as the path that the Golden Phoenix seeks also. and wants to become a beacon for those who want to seek it as well and want help. The Toltec seers assembled parties. They found others. They taught each other. They went to the other side together. They dreamed, quote and unquote. They used dreaming in a different meaning than most people. They dreamed together. So you're invited, if this is your call, to contact Goldragon for now. Soon there will be others. There's Anna Seahawk, knows she's a member also. So she can help you to join as well. So if anybody wants to have a conversation and feels ready, where Lee won't have to explain that up is up and down is down. There was this young man who is in the Golden Phoenix right now, who seems to have a lot of intent, a lot of intensity for his situation. And so he was invited, and the Spirit called for it, but nothing is guaranteed. And he had a bit of a reaction to the whole up is up and down situation. Of course, because it's very confronting to look at when situation is such a high level all of a sudden. Like, this is fast. Lee was able to do it, but he had, years of self-healing mostly through memory release, which is what was essentially a mirror of the techniques used by the Toltecs, which they call recapitulating, where they go back, but it's much more intentful. Their techniques are better, and they go back to release, disentangle their filaments from what they got entangled in those moments, because they can relive them. The mind, Atman, or the true being inside, is able to use a little bit of its innate power quite easily, which is it parallels the phenomenon people call normal dreaming, where they can make a memory like real and so lucid, so that some of the most difficult ones essentially can be worked on for quite a while, and then they create a better ability to remain lucid and dreaming. So Lee was doing a sort of Western civilization, quote and unquote, version. Wilhelm Reich, Gurdjieff, Uspensky, others, to release the psyche from its bonds in the past. And this sort of gave him a bit of a heads up in this recapitulation, which is now continuing with better understanding and better technique, and which he can show others how to do as far as he's understood it, and point to others who have, as far as he can tell, good explanations for it. Taisha Abelar was really good at explaining it, and so is Joel Schaffer. or perceiver, as he calls himself. So this was a live stream with invites to come and talk, but no one, since this is the first one, I guess no one was ready, and it was very short notice. So if you'd like to be on the next live and ask your questions on Telegram, just join the channel Goldragon, or it's Goldragon Broadcast. Goldragon Broadcast. That's the channel, the public channel, to receive updates, and where Goldragon will do his public live stream. Of course, there will be also Golden Phoenix members only, especially when it sort of gains enough members to warrant that. Thank you for tuning in. If anybody wants to clip this, to take some good parts and make better videos, please, I would thank you